All right. As we skipped a week last week in talking about Young Rock, did we not? Because there was no wrestling content on the program, and you actually forgot to watch it.
Yeah, I forgot to watch it. I think what I heard was it was just him and the Leah Maivia character for the episode, or him and his mom?
It was some family. It was family interaction. It was very heartwarming. Very heartwarming. Warmed the cockles of my heart right up. But this week, you and I both wanted to watch because it's not only back in 1982 in Hawaii, the big battle royal that we saw milked a couple of episodes previously. What's going to happen? Wrestlers are bailing on Leah Maivia to go to work for the fucking opposition promoter that is apparently based out of whole cloth. I don't know where they got this guy. He's of the cloth, like Shawn Michaels. But also Young Rock spends the day with Andre the Giant. So this was a can't miss episode. I have come to a conclusion. We couldn't figure out, is this a comedy? Because parts try and in some cases succeed to be funny. Is this a drama? Because there is heartwarming family interaction. It is based on true things that actually happened to The Rock. But this program is to professional wrestling what Gilligan's Island was to the Hawaiian tour business. They could have made it more legitimate and still make it entertaining, but it's gotten preposterous with the wrestling part. At least. What did you think?
You know, I've been pretty lax on their historical inaccuracies because it's a silly, stupid show. It's on NBC. But this week was the week I was like, this show sucks. And Dwayne Johnson, from a historical point of view, is doing a real disservice to wrestling history because there are people who are going to see this and really believe that there was, in 1982 in Hawaii, Randy Savage and the Iron Sheik and Andre and...
This is like putting Abraham Lincoln in the 1880s. It just visually doesn't make sense to people who know anything about... But also a finish meeting for a battle royal in Leah Maivia's living room days before the match.
Yeah, that was something.
And like you said, any of those people being in those gimmicks at the same time there together, which didn't happen. Yes, I guarantee you that one day Andre the Giant probably was on the beach with Young Rock when he flew in to do a show.
Here's what I guarantee didn't happen. Leah Maivia and her stooge never barged into Randy Savage's hotel room while he was fucking his girlfriend. Whatever her name was, Brenda or whatever her name was.
Brenda, yeah, because I bet where Elizabeth was still down in Lexington, Kentucky, and wondering, where the fuck's Randy? Why is he in Hawaii when he's booked here for us? But no, that didn't happen. And no, Leah Maivia never double-crossed Rocky Johnson by having changing the finish and having the Iron Sheik beat him in a battle royal because she saw him having dinner with the opposition promoter. None of these things happened and couldn't have happened in this fashion at all, ever, in that.
It's like you said, there's historical inaccuracies that you can kind of deal with, things that are done to forward the narrative. But when it's just completely ridiculous, like you brought up Abraham Lincoln, imagine if there was a scene like Thomas Edison lights up Lower Manhattan and there's Abraham Lincoln. And there's George Washington, and everyone's there watching this. And it's like, these are characters from history, but none of them coexisted at the same time. And that's what it is. It's like, okay, we really like the characters of Randy Savage and the Iron Sheik and the Junkyard Dog. Why don't we just take all of these characters and put them in a time and a place they never were? Because why stop here? Why not do like Randy Savage and the Iron Sheik fighting vampires and fighting zombies? That would be better than this. That would be better than this.
Oh, and the idea that all these major names in wrestling just hung around Hawaii for weeks leading up to this big match. And then, I know on a certain level, you could tell that The Rock wants Atta to come off as the sympathetic, caring parent, which she probably indeed was.
She
actually was.
Nothing wrong with that.
And while he loves Rocky as his father, Rocky was as full of shit as a Christmas turkey on a lot of occasions and was shady and etc. And they've captured that in a fun-loving and kind of rascalish way with the Rocky Johnson guy. And as I mentioned, Atta's my favorite character on the whole show. And there is truth to some of these stories that the whole show is written around, but between the setup and of Rock running for president and then the flashbacks and it's jumping around chronologically, and I'm just driven to the point of distraction by all these people who, like you said, Abraham Lincoln and George Washington were both presidents, but they didn't interact with each other. And just seeing they're trying to do a halfway decent job in the in-ring reenactments with these actors who are mimicking the guy's moves. You can tell where they've watched them and studied them. It just, of course, it looks like, and that may be for the better, that the wrestling doesn't really look particularly real, because it shouldn't if they're doing this for a television program. And the logic of pro wrestling being legitimate, you wouldn't want the actors doing it on television as a recreation to look as good as the boys. So I'm fine with that. But just as a person in the business would know, they didn't have the meeting for the fucking Battle Royal 3 days ahead of time in Liam Ivia's apartment over fucking dip. It wasn't how those things were done. And those people weren't there. And this opposition promoter is preposterous. And he's going to give Rocky a canned ham and a giant fucking necklace. And the opposition promoter to begin with wouldn't have gone to members of Liam Ivia's family above all else. Because we've got to get somebody that knows that whole story here on the program sometime to explain how dangerous it was to fuck with Liam Ivia to just her business without even trying to infiltrate her family.
I like the meeting at ringside when Rocky says,
when they just talk it over.
You double-crossed me. Oh, I knew you were going to double-cross me. No, I was trying to help you. It's so ridiculous.
And the people were cheering the Iron Sheik because he fucking dumped Rocky Johnson, and it didn't. I don't know.
He had a show. The Rock had a show that he produced on HBO called Ballers, and I tried to watch it a few times.
I saw some of that. It wasn't that bad. I don't know that much about football,
and it wasn't that good either. I tried to watch it. I couldn't get into it. I'm starting to think maybe, I know you got lots of money, but maybe just stick to action movies and stop trying to produce television, because it's not good. This show is not good. This show is really bad. Go work on the XFL. Stop doing this. To quote Ole Anderson,
don't do this anymore.
Don't do this anymore. Bad. The show is infuriating this week. It's just, we put up with so much of just these guys weren't there. This never happened. But this week was the week it just went over the top. Liam Ivia handing out but not even handing out finishes. Booking the Battle Royal.
Yes.
In the living room. You will then do this. And then you will go over the top rope. And you mean to tell me they eliminated Andre? The one guy known for winning Battle Royals got eliminated by the Samoans and Rocky Johnson? But whatever. None of this happened. It doesn't even matter.
None of this. But they got a great 1980s soundtrack. There was Laura Branigan.
That was it. What other song from the 80s was in this episode?
I forget now.
I think it was just Laura Branigan singing Gloria.
It was over and over, so that was kind of what was in my head. But remember, they've used some Rick James in the past. They got the flavor of the 80s.
Why don't they just put those characters in the story, too?
I think Laura Branigan can sing JYD to the ring. You think she could have sung Grab Them Cakes?
Well, no, JYD, remember, he jumped ship because he wanted to move past being a junkyard dog. He wanted to be a penthouse dog. It's so stupid. Oh my God. Whoever's writing this show, I don't know. I think maybe they work for AEW. I mean, that's the other thing. This whole thing with Rocky Johnson being propositioned by the Hawaiian cowboy character, this was like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And then they just never referenced it again, and they moved on to other stuff. and then they bounce back to this. But if you haven't been watching every week of this stupid show, you wouldn't even know what they were talking about.
Well, it's your fault for missing it.
It's my pleasure for missing it.
It's must-watch television. Television that you are forced to watch, and that's what we've got going for us there. But did I mention the fantastic 80s soundtrack? I believe I brought that up, didn't I?
You did.
And as a matter of fact, if you have modern wrestling that you can't stand the sound of, or you want to go back to the 80s when wrestling and music and everything else was superior, and you want to listen to your own thing, I know exactly how you can do it. By taking and sticking in the Raycon wireless earbuds into the sides of your head. Folks, the Raycon wireless earbuds are perfect whether you're catching up on a new podcast, whether you're binging an audio book, whether you're doing your workout. You got your playlist there with all the up-tempo music so you can exercise until you have a stroke and drop over and they call the police and everything else. A pair of Raycons in your ears can make all the difference. They don't have the dangling wires and stems. They come in stylish colors. They got a comfortable in-ear fit, water and sweat resistant. So if you're a heavy perspirer or oftentimes shower with your Raycons in, you won't have to worry about it. It pairs with your Blue Teeth, every single one of them. 6 hours of battery life or playtime on the battery life. And great sound accessible to everyone because the Raycon wireless earbuds start at half the price of the other premium audio brands. As a matter of fact, Hotchkiss Featherbottom, he got not only a pair, but he got a spare. You know, the promotion we got going on, grab a pair and a spare. He got the pair and then he got another pair. So now he has 3 of them that he uses regularly and he's got 1 extra because he's got that. He's not entirely sure whether that opening in the back of his ear is where the hearing goes out or not, so he sticks 1 in both just to make sure on that side. Anyway, right now, Raycon is offering 15% off all of their products for the Jim Cornette Experience listeners. Here's what you've got to do. Go to buyraycon, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE. You're going to get 15% off your entire order. So you can grab that pair and the spare. And then if you're like Hotchkiss and you have that extra orifice, you'll at least have 1 left over. 15% off at buyraycon.com/JCE. Buyraycon.com/JCE. How many openings do you have in your head, Brian?
I'm not even going to dignify that with a response.